Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lisa Freefeather. I talk to women about decentering everything so that we can center ourselves and our interests, because when we're taken care of, everyone around us is taken care of. Okay, let me address this this setup. Um, my face is pretty much cut off. I'm gonna try to lean back to look a little natural, but I'm at a client slash friend's place taking care of their family animal. And I want to make sure that I'm always respectful of the places where I caretake, to not include their home in my videos. So while also getting some sunlight, I promised that I would come back here twice a week to create a library of stories, tutorials, educational, that kind of thing. And I had something prepared for doing a collage, but it just wouldn't work out. I spent a lot of time of the day trying to get these couple of elements to work out. So I was just like, you know what? Let me put a pin in it and let me move on to something else. In other words, let me be flexible and pivot, and then I will do that. And the whole concept is collaging is like using another form of language to communicate emotions. I'll go ahead and post it up. Let's get into some other things. Full transparency. I recognize that I've shared stories about my experiences and things that have gotten me to a point of wisdom, or gotten to a point of a lesson that I'm sharing. So with that being said, the transparency here is, at some point, I worked with people closely, clients. Let me bring a little more specificity to that. So in the past, I have communicated with people's loved ones to give messages so that they have peace on their side, because grief can be very consuming. And I've had people's loved ones on the other side who've crossed over would contact me to deliver messages. And I've had reverse, where I've had friends and clients who have asked me to reach in and give them some bit of information. I am clairaudience. So basically, I hear, I know, I see things in my mind's eye. I know that there's some people who see here, but I see it in my mind's eye. That's kind of third. And then lately it's been smelling. So all of that can be kind of overwhelming. Like, there are times when I can smell that someone is dying. Now I think that if your nose is tuned in and you can identify what it is, that's not super abnormal. Sometimes it's an odor that many people don't notice. I have been contacted or called by clients and friends who've become clients for things that are not in the norm, right? Energetic things. And at some point, I doubted, I questioned, I wondered, and I also felt a little burnt out for a number of reasons that it's not even necessary for this story to get into that. What I did was I decided to pull back and start working on some other things. And one of the things I started doing as a service is working with people's animals. Animals communicate in a different way. I know that nowadays there are, buttons, right? People are training their cats and their dogs to use buttons so that they can communicate. Just like human beings, there's body language. There's always going to be a tail wagging or a back raised. The traditional ways in which animals and people communicate is through body language. I still project manage. I have those clients. And then I started working with animals. I figured, after having 5 cats and learning how to train them, that working with animals would be a nice transitional point, as I was dealing with grief and dealing with a number of different things and not really clear about where I wanted to move to the next point. I know and the family model and relationship to self and relationship to other people, that's always been there. As I can just share with you, the moment that I knew that relationships was this dynamic that struck a chord with me more than several years ago. My dad passed away, and I had a trip booked to visit him again. And he passed away a couple of days before I was to travel. I had seen him the month prior, so I'm grateful for that. But I had this travel booked, and I decided, you know what, I'm not going to change it. I'll just change my departure. I'll change my date back home to also include service and interment and everything else. I remember the following day, Muhammad Ali had also passed away, and I was packing that Friday to travel that Saturday, and I was like, wow, okay, my dad and Muhammad Ali in the same waiting room. Anyway, shout out Layla Ali. So I had a family friend pick me up. I flew into the Carolinas, and my family friend had his teenagers and his lady. They all met me at the airport very early in the morning for my arrival, greeted me and was with me during this time. We all had this, travel booked because my family friend wanted to see my dad. He hadn't seen my father since for years from the old neighborhood. I noticed that there was this tension going on between this family friend I called God brother. I noticed this tension between my god brother and his lady. I noticed that she was like insisting to sit in the back seat back there with the teens. And I was like, no, absolutely not. You ride shotgun. And when we got to the hotel, just picking up certain things. And before I knew it, I just spoke the truth to what I saw, and I addressed them both. And they sent, they sent the teens on. We were all in my hotel room. And so when the teens went on, and I started talking to them like, hey, no holds barred, with compassion, but also with some fierceness, right? And I don't know. Maybe it was 20 minutes. It wasn't super long. It's like when you're in that zone, when you're in your zone of genius, it's like the world stops and you can't quite remember what you said, what you did, but it was like channeling source. Yeah, pretty much out of body, where ego is out of the way, because to say the things that I said, having just met her and haven't seen him for years, even though we grew up together, there was this transformation that happened. They started communicating in a way they hadn't before. She had this experience that he listened. He shut the F up, which is pretty rare for him. And he heard what she had to say. And I tell you, they left out of my room like two teenagers, two newlyweds, the joy and the bliss. I felt such a relief, because there was in this moment of grief. It was just a couple of days later after losing my dad, and I found joy just being able to positively impact and uplift and see it immediately and feel their love return. And they, like I said, they were like teenagers. And that's when I was like crystal clear. This was the subject. This was the theme that was my everything else that went into it. What I mean by went into it, everything else afterwards, because my parents passed away, bookending my birthday. My mom passed away a couple of days before my birthday, and my dad passed away a couple of days before my birthday. And I was thinking, together, they have 9 kids, myself included. I was like, you both got like plenty of kids. Why is it that you both died before and after my birthday? Kid you not. it was another level of grief to kind of move through. And it's so easy for human beings to go, well, why? Why did they leave this planet like that during this time? I'm always about positive reframing. And oftentimes things happen for us. And instead of thinking that it was, oh, okay, I had to make sure puppy baby was okay. So oftentimes we'll think that things are happening to us and not for us. And because I reframe life in that way, I just kept examining until I could come to a conclusion that empowered me and empowered my life, and that brought me life. And it was in that moment that I started thinking, well, maybe my thing was about helping people grieve through the loss of a parent specifically, or parents specifically. And I think like that's because when you're looking to serve people, people need to understand what it is that you're doing. Otherwise, it's confusing, because now you're like, well, do you take care of pets? Do you talk about grief? Like, just even in this video, you could be like, well, what the heck does she do? And I'm just sharing with you a part of my journey, because I think we all find ourselves on this road of being multifaceted, having many different experiences, having expertise or knowledge in a few different ways. Even those few different ways can be overwhelming. And why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because of two things that I care a whole hell of a lot about. There's a lot of things I care about, but these two things that have been centered around my life for as long as I can remember. And one is that we have an outdated relationship technology in this world, where there's an imbalance, where there's a higher value of one gender over the other. That's outdated. And we're in a time where the balance between the two needs to come back online. And it's for every individual. But I'm specifically talking about how women have been programmed to give their last breath, their last to other people and other things as a sacrifice. And then we miss out on the brilliance that person could bring. Now, please do not argue with me like, well, because, she did all these other things for other people. Yeah, but it was a sacrifice. And it's her choice if that is what she wants to do, but not to be programmed into this submission of you're supposed to do this for everybody else. We lose out. That's like 50%. It's over 50%. And the population is over 50% of women. Maybe I'll find a stat and include it. Okay, so you have half the world that potentially is not living up to or not fulfilling its potential. Now, as source, as God, as the creator, what I want 50% a result, what I want 50% expression, what I want half of joy? No, I would not. So this is the time to bring back in alignment this balance. The first thing is that I care about women recognizing that our relationship technology is broken and it is up to us to fix it. Yes, men are impacted by this too. Number two, it is so important to me that women have the bag. They have their money. We are equipped to usher in a life that we want and desire. Why is that? Why is because you can look across the board. Women will contribute to their communities and give back and circulate those dollars that uplifts their community. It's just what we have done. Please don't look for examples where there's like woman who's Cruella de Vil. You get what I'm saying. Do not bring me back one person who's like, and she's, selfish and all that jazz. Yes, we can find exceptions. Yes, we can find that there's someone who's got some fuckery going on. We can always find that. For the most part, across the board, this is what we do. To reiterate, one is to let women know, and we already do know, that the program and this relationship technology is poo-poo. Where do you go from that point? How do you even recognize what's poo-poo and what's not? It's a lot to sort out when you've lived your life around a whole set of beliefs and positioning. I'll put it like that. And then secondly is to make sure that women have the money to live a life by design, because these two things to me equate to working towards leveraging a balance and a harmonious way of life. Now, I'm not saying that that's utopia society, that everything is going to be ice cream and bubbles. However, I think we can do better than what we've been doing. It's time for us to stand up and create the world that we want to see. And so those are the things I talk about. Well, I'm going to wrap it up at that point. If you've watched this far, comment unicorn or drop a unicorn emoji. That would be so much fun. Thank you so much for stopping by and listening. I look so forward to being in service to you if you are one of the many women that I am here to serve. Until next time, mwah, ciao.